I'm not a one-trick pony. I talk about more than just fitness on this treadmill. I talk about movies, too. Hi everyone, my name is Chris and welcome to Tread Talks. In addition to my weekly videos where I talk about my fitness journey, I also really want to talk about movies, too. So starting this week, we're going to have 2 videos weekly. One focusing on my fitness journey, the other a movie review. And so I thought I would start with something relatively easy to review, something that wouldn't stir up a lot of controversy from a very ardent fan base, and that movie is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So right off the bat, let me say that I'm somewhere in the middle when it comes to Star Wars fandom. I'm not one of those hardcore fans that knows a lot about the extended universe or all the names of the locations and the side characters, but at the same time I'm not oblivious to the series. I've seen the movies and I really enjoyed them, and I really enjoy this world, and I wanted to see what this story would bring to it, as it sets itself up as a prequel to the original movie. And so for me as a casual fan of Star Wars, there was a lot that I liked about the movie. The general tone of the movie is a little bit darker than previous instances. And in fact, in terms of genre, it feels like a war movie that's set in the Star Wars universe, rather than one of the traditional, space operas that you might be expecting. And that's a pretty cool thing to see in the Star Wars series. It might be taking a little bit from Marvel's book, where each subsequent entry in the series is a take on a different genre of film. And the plot itself was very clever in addressing some of the loopholes and the open questions that have been hanging around the Star Wars universe for years about that original movie. There's one scene in particular that addresses what many have seen as a core logical flaw with the first movie. Now it becomes something that seems to have been planned for all along. And so when I was watching that scene, I was just smiling, like, ah, yes, this answers that question. Now the characters in the movie do a pretty good job overall with a couple of key standouts. The first is the droid, K2SO4. He's a sarcastic, snarky robot that brings a little bit of a comedic element to the movie. And I think that works really well, because in such an intense film, something set in the intensity of war, it makes sense to me that the one character that would be able to be snarky and sarcastic and bring humor to the situation would be the one that isn't as connected to the human life or death struggle to survive. And then second was Donnie Yen's character, Chirrut Imwe, who I had to look up because I couldn't remember that name. I don't think it was mentioned a lot of times. But I really appreciated his character because he's not a Jedi, but he's someone who's sensitive to the ways of the Force. And so his character brought an added level of depth to the Force as a religion. And it was great to see his arc, where we see his faith tested in increasingly dangerous situations. And in addition to that, he has the funniest line in the movie. And then finally, the last third of the movie is like this crescendo of action, where even if the movie had some missteps before, or if you felt like it was moving too slowly, the final third of the movie really has you bought into the stakes of the situation and wanting to see the characters succeed. I'd say it's the best filmed, best orchestrated scene of action in any Star Wars movie to date. At the same time, there are a few missed opportunities that are a little bit frustrating, because they could have been avoided and they could have raised the movie to the level of really something special. The biggest problem for me was the main character, Jyn Erso. This could have been a truly memorable character, with a great and tragic arc to her story, except that her life and her struggles so often are told to us through exposition. Instead of showing us what happened, we get lines of dialogue being read to us, or maybe her saying to another character, "You abandoned me!" And now we know she was abandoned. And this could have been done much more effectively through some form of visual storytelling. The things that come to mind are the opening scenes of Up, or more recently Finding Dory, where we connect with the character in a set of very concise scenes that convey to us what their life has been and what their struggles have been. And the same goes for the other main character of Cassian. The two main characters of the film fall short on character development, and it's not the fault of the characters themselves, because they have content there that could be truly compelling and engaging, but it's just not shown to us. And there are also parts of the movie that feel a little bit unnecessary. Now, as you've probably heard or seen from the trailers, Darth Vader is in the movie, and he has 2 scenes. And one of those scenes is amazing and awesome and deserves to be there. But there's also a totally unnecessary scene earlier in the movie with him that feels like just pure fan service. And fan service is fine if it works in service of the plot, or if it does something really cool. But this isn't either of those things, and it's just wasted time that could have been given to things like character development. So overall, I think this is a strong but flawed first step into this offshoot of the main Star Wars story. It's certainly a story that was worth telling, it's very interesting for those who like this universe, and it's certainly worth seeing in theaters if you're a fan of action for that last third of the movie. But at the same time, it has a lot of squandered potential that can be a little bit frustrating for those who like Star Wars, because it limits it from being as special as it could have been. Now, if you're not a fan of Star Wars or you haven't seen the movies, then definitely don't see this as your first entry, because the movie relies very heavily on context and you knowing what's happening in the universe. But if you've seen at least the first movie, go ahead, have fun, you'll enjoy this story. Okay, so that was my attempt at a movie review, and I'm going to continue this next week, so you get to pick actually which movie I do next. There are a couple of really good movies that are going into wider circulation. The first is the movie Fences, starring Denzel Washington, also directed by him. It's a film adaptation of a play that's been referred to as the black version of Death of a Salesman, so that sounds interesting. And then the second is Hidden Figures, the true story of the African-American women that were the brains behind the NASA mission to send astronaut John Glenn into space. So I'm going to be watching one of those two, and your comments will decide which one. So leave a comment to let me know, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, and have a great day.